Let's begin our session. Tell me about your father.
Okay, doctor. My father. Oh, my father, a big man in the neighborhood. Everybody loved him.
He had a weight problem?
What? No. Why would you say that?
You said he was big. I'm just picturing a guy stuck in a porch swing.
Big as in important, not big as in gravitational pull.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't speak fluent mobster.
That's not mob talk. That's just talk.
I don't know. Sounds like gangster euphemisms to me. Big man in the neighborhood. Did he wear pinstripes and a violin case?
No, nobody wears a violin case. He wore khakis and managed a plumbing supply warehouse.
Okay. I just don't want to fat shame a hypothetical Don.
There was no fat or shame, just admiration. The man was respected. God rest his soul.
Was his soul tired?
What?
You said God rest his soul. I figured maybe his soul needed a nap.
No. That's just a thing you say when someone's dead.
Oh. I never say that. I usually go with oops or that escalated quickly.
Look, he died when I was 12.
How?
Sudden heart attack.
Really? Not shot in the back at an Italian restaurant while the jukebox played Valere?
What?
You're a known gangster in New York. Your father gets rubbed out in a gangland hit. It's practically in the brochure. Don't ask how I know. Ask how I couldn't.
You're good, Doc. You're good.
How was your relationship?
We were close. Not great before he died, though.
Why's that?
My grades were slipping, I wasn't doing chores, and I joined a street gang that firebombed the Dairy Queen.
Sorry, what was that?
My grades were...
After the grades.
Oh, yeah, we firebombed the Dairy Queen.
You what?
We thought it sounded gay.
That's horrifying.
You're telling me we thought we were attacking a drag bar. Turns out Cookie Puss is an ice cream cake.
Cookie Puss is Carvel.
Oh, well, that was definitely an oops. Well, does this still work? The podcast looks at always and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaca. Today we're discussing Analyze This from 1999 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. We're excited to announce that we've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. We joined because we care about the safety and well-being of our community members. If you feel our behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help us make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work, so if you have skills you think would be helpful, or time and a desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel, which does video now. I don't know that we actually announced that anywhere, but you can see. Yep. You can see our lovely smiling faces on the YouTubes doing this podcast. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even if they're Robert De Niro, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
What do you mean, even if they're Robert De Niro? Should it be especially if they're Robert De Niro?
Especially if they're Robert De Niro, sure. Joe, take us back to 1999.
And that's the way it was.
Before we do that,
sorry?
I just got back from a vacation, and my oldest works in a thrift store. And I graduated high school the year this movie came out, 1999. This came into my daughter's thrift shop, and they bought it for me and gave it to me on my vacation. It's a penguin wearing a Class 99 hat.
It's a penguin wearing a Class 99 hat, yes, for those who are not watching. Yeah, that's very sweet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
I'm glad you interrupted me just to do that.
Me too.
Let's start off by hearing what actual psychiatric doctors thought of this movie about a gangster and his therapist back in 1999. George, read this headline from the Staten Island Advance.
I haven't read any of this. I did read through the cold open, but I didn't read through the history segment. I am dying to know what actual psychiatrists thought of this movie. Very much like I would be dying to know what they thought of Stranger Than Fiction. Psychiatry. It's not all talk.
I will read. Glenn O. Gabbard, a professor of psychoanalysis at the Menninger Clinic and the University of Kansas School of Medicine, is co-author of a new edition of Psychiatry and the Cinema, published by the American Psychiatric Press. He points out that Analyze This is the sixth film since 1990 to explore the relationship between a gangster and a psychiatrist. From Mad Dog and Glory to The Sopranos on HBO, the public has been treated to the unlikely combo of the mobster and the shrink. We love to see the hard-boiled sleazeball who's really a sensitive pussycat underneath, explains Gabbard, who studied the psychiatry connection in movies with his brother, Corinne Gabbard, a film and literature teacher at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. It makes these people much less terrifying. But this is collective wishful thinking. The whole psychodynamic premise of the movie is a myth. The frightening reality is that professional gangsters who commit murders without blinking a tearless eye are rarely sensitive softies, yearning to be saved by a shrink. When such types are seen by a psychiatrist, they are likely to be diagnosed as having an antisocial personality. As Gabbard explains, we would like to imagine the psychological types depicted in these films as people just like us. In reality, they are not like us. They will kill and torture and maim without remorse or guilt for the victim. End quote. I did a little research, and as far as I can tell, Mad Dog and Glory doesn't feature a gangster going to see a head shrink. However, I guess the character who's a loan shark does talk about being in therapy. I don't know, I never saw it. I have no idea what other films feature a gangland crook seeking mental health assistance, which predates 1999. But if you do, audience, please write in and tell us what those are. They might even make a good trivia question. Name 6 movies that predate Analyze This and The Sopranos where a criminal willingly goes into therapy. As to what else Mr. Gabbard says, I don't think I look at movies like this and think the mobster is like me. However, I think fiction can't help but humanize even the worst people. Would you agree with that, George?
Yeah, it's why I never saw The Joker. I don't need to identify or humanize people who've done horrible things.
Fair enough. Strictly speaking, the next story doesn't involve an organized crime boss like DeNiro plays in today's movie, but he is currently on trial for racketeering, sex trafficking, fraud, and coercion. If convicted on all those charges, he would face the possibility of a life sentence, which is a real accomplishment considering he's not accused of killing anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, can you guess who this person is and what he was doing in the news back in 1999? Time's up! George, read this headline from New York Newsday.
Puffy arrested. Lopez detained after shooting in Midtown Club.
Do you folks remember that Jennifer Lopez used to date Sean Puffy Combs before she became Ben Affleck's on-again, off-again spouse? I totally forgot that. Anyway, I will quote from the article. Hip-hop magnate Sean Puffy Combs and 2 members of his entourage were hit with felony gun charges last night after the rap impresario allegedly pulled a pistol during an early morning shooting that injured 3 people inside a Midtown nightclub. A Combs protege, up-and-coming rapper Jamal Shine Barrow, was charged with 3 counts of attempted murder in the 2:50 a.m. shooting at Club New York, 252 West 43rd Street. Prosecutors said the gunplay was sparked by an argument between Combs and an unidentified group of people. A female witness told police that Combs and Barrow each drew semi-automatic pistols after a member of the group threw a stack of money in Combs' face. Detective Arthur Candingan said in a criminal complaint filed in Manhattan Criminal Court. According to the complaint, Barrow opened fire, striking 3 people, including a Brooklyn woman who was hit in the face.
Ouch.
Police held Combs' girlfriend, Bronx-born pop diva and actress Jennifer Lopez, for more than 15 hours after the shooting, but released her without charges. End quote. Just to catch everyone up, it's been alleged that Combs let Barrow be the fall guy and Jamal got convicted. After getting out of jail, Jamal Barrows was deported to his home nation of Belize. The guy eventually entered politics and became an elected official. Like our country. Combs, meanwhile, as I mentioned, is back facing serious criminal charges. George, you were 18 in 1999, that's correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this previous Sean Combs legal challenge?
No, not at all.
It doesn't ring a bell.
Nope.
Okay, George, well, this will ring a bell for you. Tell us about Analyze This.
Okay. This was written and directed by Harold Ramis. For the show, we've seen his work in Stripes, Back to School, Animal House, and High Fidelity. Joe and I have both seen his work in Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, Groundhog Day, and The Mask.
And I've seen his work in Caddyshack and Meatballs.
Fun fact, I'm planning a future cabaret thing to use the song I'm All Right from Caddyshack, because I think that'd be a hell of a lot of fun to do with a group of people. Mm-hmm. But I can't find like a karaoke instrumental track of it anywhere, which means I'm going to have to fucking write this shit and synthesize the entire thing.
Oh, you know you love it.
I do love it. And I've seen his work in Bedazzled, Multiplicity, and As Good as It Gets. This is George in the editing room. The day after we recorded this, I was able to find everything I needed to put that cabaret act together. Thank you for anybody who heard that and then thought, hey, I could help him find that. You don't have to do that. I found it. This was also written by Kenneth Lundgren.
And I've seen his work in Manchester by the Sea.
And I've seen his work in Gangs of New York. And also written by Peter Tolan, whose work I've seen in Bedazzled. Blurbs. I want to talk about blurbs for a second.
Sure, talk about blurbs.
We have an idea, sort of, on this show of what a blurb should be. These various services out there don't agree on what a blurb should be. And I feel like we might give undue shade to YouTube for the way they do their blurbs, because I think what a lot of their blurbs are whatever was on the back of the VHS or DVD, just copied and pasted in there.
Probably.
IMDb says, a comedy about a psychiatrist whose number one patient is an insecure mob boss.
Okay, sure.
Sure. YouTube says, a frantic psychiatrist's life is turned upside down when he is forced to treat a domineering mob boss whose dirty secret is his fear of ordering a hit.
That's not his fear.
It's
not correct at all.
That's the wrongest thing I think we've ever seen in a blurb. It basically gives credits, and so I'm not going to read the fucking rest of this shit.
It's really weird. It's like, it's the starry blah, 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 who was in multi...
Yeah. It's giving credits. Like, they just copied whatever was on the VHS or DVD and pasted it in there.
And they also put 1999 Water Murders.
Yep.
Yeah, it was definitely a cut and paste. All right, my friend, let's get into this.
All right. So we start the film with a look back at old-timey gangsters.
Some of them apparently real gangsters, not actors.
Yeah. What we have is our protagonist, Paul Vitti, talking to his mentor in the mob world, or his father's buddy who promised to always take care of him. And he's telling him the story of this historic meeting of all of the United States mob bosses that took place at some farmhouse somewhere, like in upstate New York. And this farmhouse was owned by a mobster, so was already under surveillance by the local police. So when that police department notices all of these other mob bosses showing up, they call the FBI, and the FBI comes in and raids the place.
In real life, what mobsters would do when they would have these major meetings is they wouldn't do it in the United States.
Yeah.
They'd fly overseas, I mean, in places like Cuba or wherever, So, they can pay off the officials. It'll be easier to do their little gangland meeting because the local officials either won't care because, hey, just as long as you don't do your crime stuff here, fine, or they pay someone off.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure somewhere in the history of crime, gangs members have all met in a place in the United States, but I think when anything that big with all the heads of the stuff, I think they would meet overseas. But I don't know. What do I know about gangsters?
Right? Me neither.
Anyway, that gentleman, our character, of course, is played by Robert De Niro.
Right.
And one of his many gangster roles.
So Paul Vitti is played by Robert De Niro. For the show, we've seen him in Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Jackie Brown, and Goodfellas. Joe and I have both seen him in The Fockers. You've seen him in a lot.
And I've seen Mr. De Niro in The Irishman, Killer of the Flower Moon, Joker, American Hustle, Silver Linings Playbook, Wag the Dog, Heat, The Untouchables, Angel Heart, Brazil, The King of Comedy, and Mean Streets. And so he's talking to his mentor about how they now have to have a new meeting. And he's uncomfortable with this because remember in the old meeting, his dad got arrested, all the other gangland guys got in trouble, and running out of the place and got picked up by the police. So he's concerned about doing it again, but there's trouble in gangster land, so they got to have a meeting to settle things.
And the trouble is that it's modern day, and a lot of the shenanigans they did just don't work anymore, so they had to figure out how they're going to survive. Not like... Because the first meeting was to try and carve up the United States into their respective domains. This one is, how do we keep mobbing?
And without stepping on each other's toes.
Right.
Which is still the equivalent of, hey, this is my territory, this is your territory, don't go into mine, I won't go into yours, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Today, they would just pay the president of the United States, and that would take care of everything.
Right. So, that meeting between Mentor and Vitti wraps up, and they're getting ready to leave this little cafe that they're in, and gunfire. just drive-by mob hit takes out like 3 bodyguards because everything's not okay. And the no, did it take out the mentor?
Yeah.
Okay, then it took out the mentor.
You didn't see that part of the movie?
No, I thought he was talking to him at the end, but whatever.
No, he's talking to the other guy who survived with him. But no. That's why that's another reason he's upset. Did you remember me saying someone killed a friend of mine?
Yeah. Okay. That was the guy. That statement later makes a lot more sense now.
So you watch this whole film confused, like, oh, who's this friend he's talking about? I didn't
slightly.
Okay.
All right. So now we jump to our to our protagonist. I'm not sure that Vitti counts as a protagonist. I think he's an antagonist.
I guess, but he is the co-star of the movie.
Yeah, but we jump to the protagonist, Dr. Ben Sobel, a psychiatrist, and he's talking to a patient who is unhappy with her relationship.
With her husband.
Or with her boyfriend.
No, it's her husband.
No, the husband is later. This one is, she's got relationship anxiety.
Oh, okay, right. You're right, because she's on the couch by herself. I'm sorry. All right.
Right. And he does, the movie does one of those things where it shows what the person wants to happen, and he like just absolutely berates her in a way that a psychiatrist shouldn't. And then it just goes to the current thing, which is him not doing that and him just being like, well, you should really talk about your feelings right now. Like, honestly, not the worst representation of psychiatry.
And that psychiatrist is played by, of course, Billy Crystal. George and I have both seen him in City Slickers, and I've seen him in Deconstructing Harry, and I watched him in Soap, the first show to feature a regular supporting character who was gay. Of course, it's still played by a straight actor, but that was the premise. And they were very progressive at the time, although if you go back and watch the clips of Soap, boy, did they get a lot wrong. And also a parody of soap operas, which today no one would understand because we practically don't have soap operas anymore.
Yep.
Quick Billy Crystal story, and then we'll get back to the credits because it just popped in my head. Crystal, even though he's straight and he's playing a gay character, this is America, and so they don't understand the difference between an actor and his role. And so people thought he really was gay. And so when he would go to like at airports or public appearances or whatever, he'd be attacked by all these homophobes, which hopefully, yeah, I don't think Crystal is a particularly bad guy anyway. So I was about to say hopefully it opened his mind, but I don't think he was ever particularly conservative, so he probably always thought, like, these guys are assholes.
Yeah. And I've seen him in The Princess Bride and heard him in Monsters Incorporated and Cars.
After Billy Crystal, or Dr. Ben Sobel, is done with his patient, we go back to Robert De Niro's character berating some guy about, hey, give us the information. Who killed my friend? And he's like, I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing.
Right. They've got this, I don't know, cross between Ralph Macchio and Joe Pesci. Like, lock.
I guarantee they probably wanted Pesci, and for some reason they couldn't get him.
But they've got him, arms tied behind his back on a chair, and they're interrogating him, like, by being violent and threatening him. And
although De Niro doesn't...
De Niro's character is like, he doesn't know nothing. Like, fucking let him go.
He threatens him, but he never actually hurts him.
Which it's almost like that character understands how useless torture actually is. So, now Dr. Strobel and his son are in the car in New York City in vague rain. Not enough to wet them when they're out of the car. They're on their way to Grandpa's new party for his new book that he has. And the kid is scripted to be smart and observant, and also has a good enough relationship with his mother that he can drag his mother into things. Like, your mother says you're not going to read your dad's book because you're jealous. Or my mother. Sorry, not your mother. I mean, your mother would probably say that too if you were on better terms with her. But anyway, and they rear end a car.
He's not paying attention to his driving. He runs right into the car of the gangsters who we've seen previously.
Yeah. And one of those gangsters we'll just introduce right now is Jelly. I'm just going to do the thing you do, Joe, and just use the actors' names because I can't remember these fucking characters' names. He's Robert De Niro's right-hand man, basically. And he's played by a guy with a gangster, like a mob name, Joe Vittorelli. He sounds like he's already in the mob. And a lot of the movies he was in. He might just be a mob guy that acts on the side. I don't know.
Well, it's curious you should say that, because one movie that he was in, also with someone else we're going to introduce later in the picture, he was in Bullets Over Broadway, which is about a guy who writes a play that is very bad, and then I forget how, but a gangster sees the play, rewrites it, and does a better job of it. And so that playwright becomes jealous of the gangster for writing a better play than him. And that's what Bullets Over Broadway is about.
Well, I've seen him in Shallow Hal, which is not that deep a movie.
That's the one with the large drawers, right? She throws off drawers in a huge...
Yes, that's the one where Jack Black is hypnotized or something so that he sees a very large woman as Gwyneth Paltrow.
Well, he sees her as thin, though, right?
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes, so he sees her as thin, but she's huge because she's wearing a fat suit. Classy stuff you watch there, George. Real progressive work.
I was throwing shade on the fucking movie, Joe. So.
I know. I'm teasing. Relax.
All right. Anyway, so the problem with Billy Crystal running into the back of this car is that there's somebody in that trunk, and now the trunk won't close.
Yeah, trunk pops open. They quickly close.
Billy Crystal manages to honestly not notice anything really out of the ordinary until just before the end of the scene. But Jelly, like, the first mobster in the car is like, wants to get into a fight over it. And Jelly's like, we need to not make a scene right now. And Billy Crystal's doing the thing of like, no, we should trade insurance information. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. And Jelly's like, no, it was our fault for existing right there where you were trying to drive. It's okay. Because as much as Jelly will describe himself as a moron later in the movie, he's not. He gets what the risk is here.
Yes.
But the key takeaway is that Billy Crystal hands Jelly one of his business cards and says, yeah, I'm a psychiatrist. That's the point of this scene.
Yes. That's how the two connect. And speaking of points to scenes, I wasn't entirely sure about the point of this next scene, which is Billy Crystal at that party with his dad. Because I don't really think they developed that relationship that
all we need to do, the takeaway from this is that his father is a more successful and wealthy psychiatrist than he is. And he also isn't divorced, which Billy Crystal's character is divorced. He's also engaged to be married, but nobody seems to care about that.
No.
At all.
Oh.
In the movie, except for that person that he's engaged to.
But we'll get into who she is later.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back to Robert De Niro. He is again talking about how he wants to find out who shot his friend. And then he suddenly starts having a panic attack.
Yes, he starts having a panic attack. It is important to point out that this is, in fact, a panic attack because he thinks it's a heart attack. And the next scene is they go to a hospital and the doctor's like, no, dude, your fucking heart is fine. You had a panic attack. And they basically, we don't see it happen, but it's implied that they beat the fuck out of that doctor for saying he had a panic attack.
Which I don't know how easy it is to beat up a doctor in the hospital and just walk out. I mean, I know these are gangsters, but I would think that'd call attention to... First of all...
You'd think.
It's an emergency room, so he would not be sitting there by himself, which they show him in like a private room. That wouldn't be the case. As someone who's been in the hospital way too much... I assure you.
I visited you there.
You did visit me there, but I was upstairs at that point. Down in the emergency room, there's not that much privacy where you can just smack around a doctor and not have anyone notice.
Right. But he's like, maybe it's a head thing. And he asks his moron right-hand man, Jelly, if he knows anybody. And he's like, well, I know a psychiatrist. He ran into the car the other day.
And so he gets that card and he goes, oh, well, we have a premise.
Yep. And then... the next day, Dr. Sobel is in his office, Billy Crystal's in his office, dealing with a patient who has chronic, lack of self-esteem. And Jelly comes in and terminates that session. It's like, nope, you're the fuck out of here. I need the room. And the guy basically, on the spot, learns how to stand up for himself and extorts $300 out of Jelly for this. And he's like, fuck it, I'm cured. Sweet. And I have $300 now.
They're doing this because they want De Niro's character, no one to know he's seeing a psychiatrist. Put a pin in that, because that idea seems to disappear as the movie goes along. Him not wanting no one to know that he's doing this.
Yep.
So in any case, he's talking to Billy Crystal, saying, oh, I need help. And Crystal's like hesitant, but he's sort of threatening, and he's intimidating. Crystal goes, okay, fine, I'll see what I can do to help you out.
Yeah. And at some point, De Niro's like, just don't turn me into a F slur.
Yes. That is probably one of those definitely does not work scenes.
It doesn't need to be there.
Although I guess you can make an argument that is the way the guy would talk.
Sure. Still doesn't need to be in the movie.
Or if it had to be there, Crystal could have at least said, yeah, don't use
push
that
back on
around
it.
me.
Yeah.
And of all people, that should have been something the character says, because Billy Crystal, like I said, experienced real homophobia real up close. So he really should have, and he's a producer on this film, so he really has no excuse to go like, oh, you know what, my character, and his character would naturally say, yeah, don't use that language around me. Would have worked perfectly for the film, would have been fine, move on.
So now we jump to the offices of Primo Sidone, or Sidone, or whatever. Doesn't matter, I don't care. In a movie full of people characters that I don't like, this guy, I don't like him the most.
Yeah, Mr. Primo is played by Chaz Palminteri, and I've seen him in The Usual Suspects, The Last Dragon, and, as they mentioned, Bullets Over Broadway.
And I've heard him in Stuart Little.
Now, am I wrong? But aren't most of his scenes of him in his own office, and that's it, until the final scene?
Yep. I bet they saved a lot of money by shooting all of his scenes in one day.
I wonder if that's what he did. He's like, hey, I can only be available for one day. And like, all right, we'll see all your scenes here.
But he basically exists to have a reason why Robert De Niro's character should fear for his life.
Yes. Because he's the one trying to kill him. And he's the one who put the hit, who was supposed to kill De Niro and winds up accidentally killed the mentor.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we didn't introduce the son. You gave him credit.
We should introduce the son. I haven't seen him in anything. You haven't seen him in anything, but Michael Sobel's played by Kyle Sibihi. Maybe he doesn't have any other credits because nobody could pronounce his name.
God knows we can't. In any case, so Chaz is making threats with his henchmen, and they're setting up basically the plot of what will happen later in the film. And then we cut back to Billy Crystal, again having an argument with his young son. How old do you think his kid is anyway?
Like 15, 16. The son's bedroom is apparently air vented, connected to the office so he can hear all his dad's business, so he knows that there was a mobster there. But what Paul is doing is not Paul. What the doctor is trying to do is pack up to leave for his vacation to Florida, where he's supposed to meet up with his fiance and get married. That was one of the conditions for his agreement to treat mobster dude is like, hey, when I get back from my fucking vacation. So we know that won't wait. So now we meet the fiance, Laura McNamara.
I'm sorry, before we introduce the fiance, it's just something I just realized, and it's a minor thing. But, okay, so he is going off to marry her, and presumably, I guess they're going to do a little honeymoon. Where was his son going to be?
Good question, Joe.
I mean, who's going to be taking care of his kid?
Good question, Joe.
Okay. He's divorced, so where's the mother?
But that kid can also just exist. Like, they could be in the same hotel, get different rooms, and...
I guess.
Yeah. So now we meet the fiance, a news, a field reporter for WVBF Miami, Laura McNamara, who is doing her Firewell thing where she says, hey, I'm not going to be a news lady anymore because I'm getting married.
Which doesn't make any sense.
I'm moving to New York to be with my husband. I didn't line up a job. I'm just going to stop doing what I love for a career so I can be wife.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, yes, it doesn't explain how they ever met, did it? Nope,
and we can't. Joe, we're not going to even hypothesize.
Okay. Anyway, she is played by Lisa Kudrow, and I've seen her in The Opposite of Sex and Booksmart.
And I've seen her in a bunch, like most of the episodes of Friends.
Yes, I think most people know her from Friends, but I never watched Friends, so that's not my credit.
She's actually way less ditzy as this character, which is weird. It's weird to see her not being ditzy after watching her in Friends. Like, I know that's not her. She's a smarter person than her character in Friends.
Right.
But
it still threw you off.
Yeah, so this is where, hey, my son and my future wife are meeting, and it doesn't go 100% perfect because it never fucking will. It's a stupid thing to
oh my God. I'm glad you brought that. That's another thing that was weird to me. And are we to believe he has not spent that much time around this woman who's going to be his stepmother?
Yes.
Why? What is that? That's weird. Especially for a psychiatrist who should know better. If you want a good family dynamics, you want your kids to get along to your future wife, do you think they'd have some sort of relationship well before you ever asked this woman to marry him? I'm not a psychiatrist, but even I know that, and I've never been married.
It might not be the best idea, but I guarantee you this happens all the fucking time.
Oh, I hope not. Not with a psychiatrist, at least.
That doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes just like anybody else.
But that's a huge, hey, we're getting married.
It is.
Hey, you're just meeting. Or probably there's a few times they've met anyway.
So we see a scene we didn't really need to see, which is Robert De Niro's character cheating on his wife.
Well, he's a monster. They all have to cheat.
But he can't get it up. He's having problems maintaining an erection.
Mm-hmm. And he blames her, of course, because he's a man.
Yep. So he goes to Florida and sends Jelly to get the doctor, who is asleep in bed with his fiancée. So they go down to the hotel bar near an aquarium and have a discussion about, hey, I can't get it up. No, it's not my wife.
And it's a very interesting conversation here, because even though Crystal's character is, and I think this is actually realistic, even though Crystal's character is afraid of De Niro, he does occasionally stand up for himself, go like, well, then I can't help you. You don't interrupt me. You don't do this. And he does try and set boundaries. It doesn't always stick, but I thought that was somewhat realistic. Like, yeah, I know you can kill me, but even so, F you, man. I'm busy.
I'm not exactly sure why I want this sound clip, but I know I want this sound clip.
Okay.
So, what happened with your wife last night?
I wasn't with my wife. I was with my girlfriend.
Are you having marriage problems?
No.
And why do you have a girlfriend?
You're going to stop moralizing with me now.
Oh, that's all you want of it?
Yep. I just want to point out, there are times where, no, you have a wife and a girlfriend, and everything is fine. This movie, not deep enough to even touch that as a possibility. Like, we're just going to go with all the default assumptions about monogamy and just move forward.
Well, in the film's defense, De Niro's character goes along with the default of you have a wife on one hand and
you have a girlfriend
on the other.
Yeah.
So he's not in this idea that the non-monogamy stuff. I'm sure he doesn't want his wife sleeping with anybody else.
No, he's not into ethical non-monogamy. He's just into non-monogamy.
Well, he's in monogamy for the women he's sleeping with, just not for himself.
So, by the end of this conversation, Robert De Niro's character is like, no, you're definitely my shrink because you get me. And Billy Crystal's like, no, I don't get you. But I will clear my schedule. Just, you can't keep doing this. We need boundaries. You need to not be grabbing me in the middle of the night to come treat you. No, I don't want one of those girls in the fish tank.
Oh, yes. Remember, they're meeting in a place where there's people in a fish tank. 2 women, actually. Why they're there, I don't know, considering that there's no show for them to be putting on for anybody.
Right? Well, except him. Like, maybe he paid to have them there.
They're just there for him? I guess so.
So, he comes back up to the room, and his fiancée is like, the fuck were you? I was scared out of my mind. He's like, I'm treating a mobster. And she's like, you're treating a mobster? This is going to be a weird movie. And he's like, yeah.
She didn't say it's going to be a weird movie.
No, she doesn't say that literally, Joe.
The thing about that scene is that had this been, I've seen this in too many comedies, and maybe either they had it and they dropped it, or maybe this film was smart enough not to do it. But in a lot of films, they go like, oh, I can't tell my wife or my future wife, so he wouldn't tell her why he's leaving. They have to come up with some sort of lame excuse and lie about. And thankfully, that was skipped altogether.
No, yeah, I appreciate the honesty of it. The honesty of admitting to the farce.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're trying to enjoy their time in Florida, and they go off and see the fish show. I guess in the same place he saw the 2 ladies in the tank, I guess. And then Crystal sees 2 gangsters there, the ones who always had Jelly and the other cohort. And he goes like, what are you? He goes down and talks to them. Goes, guys, what are you doing here? Come on. This is ridiculous. I said, we got to set boundaries here. So before Crystal goes down to talk to the guys, he notices that they get splashed by water in the pool, because it's a fish show. So
the orcas, the killer whales. It's the killer whale show, and they're doing tricks, and they end up splashing.
And they splash on the mobsters, and then Crystal comes down to talk to them. They're like very pissed about being wet.
Pissed. And they're like, Mr. Vitti wants to see you again. And he's like, motherfucker, I said 2 weeks. And they're like, no, movie. So they dump him in a shark tank to convince him. So then we have a walk and talk on the beach where he's like, 2 weeks. I thought we had an agreement. And he's like, we did, but I had a panic attack. So I need more treatment.
Now, the question I have here, that next thing, because this is immediately after they supposedly throw him into the tank. He's wearing the same exact clothes as he's thrown in the tank. Why is he dry?
Good question, Joe. I mean, maybe the Miami sun is just that hot.
It can get pretty hot, but that's some quick drying clothes.
Mm-hmm. So 2 key takeaways from this are, number 1, other mob guy has a hitman keeping an eye on him, looking for a time to strike. And number 2, the FBI is also watching.
Yes, and do they get credits? You didn't get credits.
I couldn't care less.
So the FBI is watching. And this should have been, this should have been obvious to VDE or whatever
Robert De Niro's character's
name is. You think it'll be obvious to him, like, hey, number 1, I'm not supposed to be seen with you, although here I am walking on the beach being seen with you. That's number 1. Number 2, he must know. He's a gangster. He knows the cops want his ass. Mm-hmm. So why are you openly walking around with this guy who you want to keep a secret anyway?
Right. So they go back up to Robert De Niro's hotel room and have the first of the tell me about your father conversations where Oedipus and Freud and wanting to fuck a mother are brought in. I'm sure all the psychiatrists who watched this loved that thing.
It's so cliche, but I get the joke there. Although Crystal probably wouldn't have introduced it that way. Saying like, oh, well, just something want to get rid of the father and replace with the mother. But it's a setup for a joke, basically. De Niro will tell later in the picture. But the thing is, Billy Crystal lives in Manhattan, or at least he practices in Manhattan at the very least. And his father must live in Manhattan because remember, he's driving there to see him. So he has a history in Manhattan. He knows who Robert De Niro's character is. How does he not know how Robert De Niro's character, a famous gangster, how his father died? You think he'd also know that because he is killed in a gangland hit. But Robert De Niro lies to him and says he had a heart attack. That should have been the first tip-off to him. Oh, you're bullshitting me. I know how your father died because you're famous.
Yep. But please let that be the only time you ask that question. Because it's a good question, but it'll get dealt with later anyway.
You think so? Okay. Oh, well, he does explain. He does explain why De Niro. I didn't explain why Crystal doesn't know.
But it'll solve that problem in that he will know.
Well, tell him later, sure.
But I'm looking at this moment here. So I grabbed a screenshot of this scene.
Okay.
Because if I ever saw a woman looking at her partner that way, I would just be like, they're not going to last.
I don't think she's looking at him particularly badly. I
feel like that look is you are an insect and I'm going to squish you. You disgust me with your presence.
Oh my God.
Like, that's just what, which it's totally unfair for me to say that. It's one frame.
You're right, exactly, yeah.
But I just happened to stop on it. Right, so this movie is a series of the same pattern over and over again. It is the doctor trying to move forward with his life and marriage, and this mobster interfering with every act of that because he's having a panic attack or he can't get his dick hard or he thinks whatever. So it's just that pattern over and over and over and over again for almost 2 hours. Like, it's really fucking annoying. So we can just frame the rest of this show so this scene is supposed to be the rehearsal dinner. This is where Billy Crystal's character is meeting his future in-laws, the father of whom is known as the Captain, which would make me fucking run for the hills.
Well, you were in the Navy.
Which is all the more reason. But what happens, Joe?
No one runs for the hills. Instead, Robert De Niro comes walking in, who said, again, we're supposed to have a private meetings. He does this at the beach, and now he's doing it here in public.
Mm-hmm.
Openly talking to Billy Crystal's character, somebody he's not supposed to know. It's insane. Everyone's looking at it, and he gives him a gift, right? He gives him a gift at some point there? Or he gives it to Gwyneth Paltrow. Or his promise is a gift. Okay, so what happens? He gives him
Lisa Kudrow. That is not Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh. White woman. He gives it to a white woman.
White women look the same to you, Joe.
Look white to me. Blonde white women. I can't tell the difference. Gwyneth Paltrow, Lisa Kudrow. Who cares? I'm joking, obviously. All right, sorry, Lisa Kudrow. But he does give her a gift, right?
He hands her an envelope full of money, and she's like, I can't take this. And he's like, I'm a mobster. Fucking take it. And she's like, okay, I'll fucking take it. God. But like, and a thing I appreciate, or just like you appreciated the honesty of not having, like, I appreciate that. No, she knows that he's not bullshitting. This is what keeps happening. And like, even her father's like, you're that fucking mobster. And he's like, I'll cut your balls off.
All right, so everyone knows him. So again, all right, whatever. I've already said my piece about that plot hole.
Yep. All right, so now this is leading up to the next day. This is leading up to the marriage ceremony at the hotel that everybody's staying in.
Yep.
And Jelly is asking Robert De Niro's other bodyguard, like, hey, do you want anything? As the other bodyguard faces towards an elevator without looking at it. I don't know what he's supposed to be, how that is supposed, like, do you not know how to stand watch, asshole? Like, you're supposed to be guarding. You're supposed to be able to call out if there's a problem. Number one, you shouldn't be right there in front of the elevator that you're expecting a bad guy to maybe pop out of. You seem super fucking vulnerable. And that'll come in and to play in a moment. But Jelly's like, you want anything? He's like, I don't know, a low-fat sandwich. And he's like, okay, so half a sandwich. Solid joke. I appreciated that joke. And then 2 skip forwards later, he's dead, and the hitman in a tracksuit, because fucking of course, is skulking around.
Now you would think, I assume, just the way it's shot, I assume De Niro has that whole floor to himself, especially if that guy just sitting there in front of the elevator. But then you think he'd have control over who can go up in the elevator to his floor? I mean, that's a thing, right? Am I nuts?
I don't know. I don't know how that particular I don't know that his apartment is the entire floor.
I don't know. I'm just assuming that because he is who he is, that I can see him buying the whole floor so no one comes up there and bother him. And he has a guy sitting there. If it doesn't own that
but
floor,
no, I don't.
People,
so even if he does buy out the whole floor, I don't think he can like.
I'm fairly certain you can have elevators not stop at certain floors. I'm positive of that now that I think about it. I mean, I don't know if that working. Well, I guess it depends.
I mean, I'm sure it's possible to disable a floor, but I don't know that a hotel would do that because like housekeeping still has to get up there and like.
Oh, sure. And they would have to have an arrangement to go up to the floor when he says so. That's all I'm saying. I think he would have powerful enough that people just couldn't randomly come up there.
Well, I think the other side of that power is if you start to exert that power, somebody's going to tell the fucking feds where you are.
Is he keeping it a secret? He's publicly walking on a beach.
Well, and the feds are actually already know he's there, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, nod your head and smile. Do it. Now you listen to me, Goomba. I know what your game is. You better call it quits. Because if you and your paisans ever do anything to hurt that little girl of mine, I don't care who your friends are, I'll hunt you down like the dog you are, and I'll kill you. Understand? Now nod and smile. Congratulations.
Okay, what do you want to say about that? Because I got some things to say.
Oh, just go ahead.
I am really curious about... He now thinks, I guess, his future son-in-law is a mobster?
Mm-hmm.
And yet... He knows that, I presume he knows him. Surely they've met before. He must know, like, if anything, he should have questions.
No, they met on this trip.
So this is their first time meeting.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this, Joe. Like,
okay.
meeting people for the first time. Sons meeting future stepmothers. Son-in-laws meeting future father-in-laws. All of it.
Okay, all right. So that I didn't get. So I was very confused by that.
No, because that screenshot that I got earlier was her... explaining to her future husband, no, my father is called the captain.
Oh, that's right. Something he should have already known if they... What kind of marriage is this? You remember a couple of shows ago...
A movie marriage, Joe. It's a movie marriage.
You remember a couple of shows ago, we were talking about how... I forget who it was or what movie it was we were talking about, but we thought it was weird that, like, oh, no, it was a post show. We were talking about how someone would introduce... If the guy didn't want to introduce his girlfriend or the boyfriend didn't want to visit someone to their friends. And I thought, well, that would be a red flag to me because, like, why would you want to?
Well, it's not that they didn't want to. It's that they just hadn't.
Well, still, I'm marrying somebody. I'm going to fucking meet your parents if they're still alive and you have a relationship with them. If you
won't be, Joe.
They don't talk. You don't talk to them. That's fine. But if you have a relationship with them, I want to freaking meet them and you should meet mine. What kind of... That's just, all right, whatever. Stupid.
So... As the vows are being said, the hitman makes his way into Robert De Niro's apartment, and Jimmy or Jelly gets the jump on him. And ultimately, that hitman ends up getting thrown off the balcony right near where the wedding is happening. So everybody sees it happen and hears it happen right as the vows are being said, which ruins the whole fucking thing for them.
And
it would ruin it for me. It'd be like, party! But...
And it's also very convenient that just happened to happen right there. Rob De Niro's room just happened to be set up just so...
Yes, because the script said so, Joe.
Also, a man just went flying out the window, and this place isn't crawling with cops? We don't see one police officer anywhere near this vicinity here, which I don't think would happen, even in Miami.
This is another thing of Lisa Kudrow looking at Billy Crystal like, come over here. I can't, every scene I stop on.
You're reading too much into this.
Well, I mean, it says right in the upper hand corner of the thing, analyze this, so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, like Billy Crystal's like, you ruined my fucking wedding, and then Lisa Kudrow comes up like, you ruined my fucking wedding.
And so they decide they're going to get married in New York. Yeah. I guess. Not guess they do, but I'm like, why would they? Why is that the default? All right, we can still get married in Miami.
Well,
but
because she already has plane tickets. She's moving up there.
That's true. I guess they were already planning to go back to New York, although he could still get a quickie wedding.
So, so Billy Crystal has Robert De Niro call Chaz Palminteri and talk about his feelings, which I don't think would have actually happened.
No. And it doesn't really make any sense anyway. What are they going to discuss? I think you tried to kill me. There's no feelings in here other than I'm going to make sure you don't kill me. You keep trying to kill me and I don't appreciate it, which that seems like the most normal thing a person, even a gangster, would feel like, yeah, I don't appreciate you trying to kill me. Most people don't like that in another person.
No, they don't. In fact,
And that I'm angry, and that anger is
Black wish.
a blocked wish. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next week at that thing, and then I can unblock that angered wish. And then hopefully you make one more move on me, you motherfucker. I'll fucking cut your fucking balls off. I'll shove them up your fucking ass. I'll fucking bury you. I'll put fucking ice picks in your eyes. I'll chop your fucking eyeballs. I'll send them to your fucking family so they can eat them for dessert. You understand me?
Hey, Paul.
What? Fuck you. You motherfucker.
Now, what I found really curious about that, and I guess because the script says so, but in reality, wouldn't this just end up in a gang? Or wouldn't they just send their thugs against each other?
sure.
There would be no meeting. You're just coming to fuck you. I told you I'm going to kill you if you try and hit on me. Try doing a hit on me. Why you need another one? I don't know. That second one should have been enough. So like, fuck you, man. I'm going to get you.
So we're halfway through the movie. I'm going to say something. I don't know if it's controversial or not. Not for one fucking second of seeing it do I believe it when Robert De Niro is trying to act like he's crying. The only thing that sold it was people reacting to it as though he's crying. Him looking like he's crying just makes him look like a psychopath trying to human.
I suspect that was a choice. I think they intentionally have him cry weird because, I mean, I've seen Rob De Niro act quite a bit. He can do a fake cry. I mean, he's a very good actor. And the way he's crying here, you're right, in the picture, it's like, it had to have been for laughs.
It had, because to me, it just came across as disingenuous and psychopathic. So the new family, who's not quite married yet, show up to his house, and there's a giant ass fucking fountain out front. A wedding gift.
Which, again, makes it very, well, I've already said this, but it makes it very conspicuous.
Yeah. In fact, so conspicuous that inside the house are 3 fucking FBI agents who are like, you're palling around with a mob boss. And he's like, yeah, I know. He's my client. And they're like, you're going to get us information because otherwise we'll make your life a living hell.
Which I don't know if that's the smartest way to get a cooperation.
I don't either. It doesn't really
someone
work
who's a
for them
civilian. He's not a mobster himself.
Nope.
Anyway, we go back to the mobsters after that scene with the FBI, and
there's a different mentor that I was getting confused with the first mentor.
Okay. And that second guy says, we got to kill...
we got to kill your doctor friend. And he's like, anybody touches my fucking doctor friend, I will kill them. Like, that's it. Like, you do not go after my fucking psychiatrist. Which, all right, a little bit of respect there. Hold that line.
Also, it's very curious that they think he knows too much, but, I mean, granted, these people aren't in the session, so they don't know, but De Niro really isn't telling them much.
No, he's not.
He's not confessing to any murders, any crimes. It just basically...
In fact, the mobsters think he's spilling way more than he is, and the FBI want him to spill more than he is.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then we see a dream that the doctor has that is taken out of The Godfather, where he is killed in a gunfight, and I don't want to analyze that.
Sorry, since neither of us have seen The Godfather.
Yeah. So then they have another session in a church at a funeral for a dead mobster. And there's lots of awkward strangers kissing each other and stuff on the cheeks. All G-rated shit.
This is one of those scenes that could have just as easily not been in the picture.
Yep. Which is why I'm just kind of moving past it. So then we cut to the FBI guys who have a tape of that conversation about, hey, you should kill your doctor. And they edit it like I edit our podcast. Before we started video.
Hopefully you don't edit like you do on podcast, so they take stuff out of context.
Well, I will edit to make the narrative make sense that I want to. I'm pretty sure you like. You don't usually come back to me after the review being like, you made me sound like an asshole, motherfucker. So, like...
Well, mainly because I don't talk like that.
Right. Well, that. But those
What
editorial
accent was that? What are you doing there?
I don't know. Those editorial decisions are there to make sure that our show has a narrative arc that we're going to be happy with. The FBI does the same thing. Their narrative arc just happens to be false. They want it to sound like Robert De Niro wants to kill his psychiatrist. And they do that, and then they play the tape for the psychiatrist, which convinces psychiatrist to put on a wire.
Yes.
So Robert De Niro's character takes the doctor out to dinner at the
Another
restaurant. Another public place. But he takes him out to dinner with his associates and then gets up to use the bathroom. And then the associates fill the doctor in on, hey, by the way, this is where his father was killed, not heart attack, was murdered by a rival person at that table over there eating ravioli. Like, okay, so Billy Crystal's character is like, well, shit, now there's fucking a thing. Now I know a thing. So now, like, I have a better insight into who this motherfucker I'm treating is. So he goes to the bathroom and ditches the wire there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he comes out of the bathroom, and Robert De Niro's character has now been convinced that he's wearing a wire, that he's not wearing a wire anymore, but haha. So they drive Billy Crystal out to a remote area to basically do what the tape said they're going to do.
Which is weird, because before that, because at the restaurant, he's accusing him of wearing a wire. Then he pulls over Crystal's shirt and he sees there's no wire. So you think that would have been the end of it right there. Instead of driving him off where he would go, oh, I guess we're wrong. My apologies. My associates fucked up. You obviously aren't out to get me.
Yeah. But meanwhile, like, Primo has gotten word that he's at the restaurant, so he sends a hit squad. The FBI realizes they've been had, and they drive, De Niro has him and the doctor driven to a fucking whatever, junkyard, and holds him at gunpoint. And then Billy Crystal, like, psychologist on him, is like, hey, remember when your father died? How did that feel? And Robert De Niro's character breaks down crying and hugs him. And then, oh, I haven't gotten to pull this sound clip out in forever.
There was a firefight!
You've been dying to use that.
I've said, how many episodes ago did we watch The Boondock Saints? I've held on to that for that long.
Been a while. But before we get into the firefight, this is one of the most frustrating things, and it's actually because the psychiatrist I read earlier doesn't bring this sort of thing up. But for me, this has got to be the most frustrating thing watching psychiatry portrayed in films. And yes, it's a comedy. You're not supposed to take it too seriously. But even in dramas, they do this. They have the moment where the character just breaks down and it all just comes out. And now, granted, at the end of this, they don't necessarily say he's cured or anything, but still, there is no great moment in psychiatry. There's no way if you as a patient, you're like, oh, I have this big crying thing, and then suddenly everything's okay. It's still an emotional thing you still have to go through. You still have to feel the. I mean,
in fact, Robert De Niro has thought he was having that moment a bunch of times, and then come back like that moment wasn't real because I'm still not okay. So it kind of like pans out.
I guess they sort of address it, but still,
the closest thing to that I've ever felt was my old psychologist telling me that I deserved to feel happy. And that floored me. And I cried real fucking hard just hearing somebody else say those words. It didn't fix everything, but I did feel kind of better afterwards.
Well, sure, and I'm sure, look, you probably feel better after you have a good cry about anything, but it's still, you're not fixed, which is what they imply. Probably the most egregious is in Good Will Hunting, where he no longer has to see doesn't see Robin Williams anymore, because only he's cured, because, turns out it's not his fault that his dad is dead, or whatever the hell it was. I'm like, wow, what bullshit. Anyway, back to this picture.
So there's that firefight happens, and the good guys end up okay. One of them gets shot, but he'll live. And there's brief confusion about whether or not Billy Crystal's character actually managed to shoot anybody. Jelly clears that up, like, no, you hit that inanimate object and that inanimate object.
Yeah, because what happens, Rob De Niro is too busy crying, so he's no help.
Right.
And then Billy Crystal grabs his gun and says, fine, I'll start shooting. And misses everything he aims at. And Jelly's the one who pretty much kills the bad guys.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So, oh my God. I thought this happened earlier in the movie.
Yep, you sure did, Joe. So, Billy Crystal is treating a married couple.
After the shootout, for some reason, he's still, instead of taking a day off or something, he just goes back to his practice.
And this married couple are having sexual problems. And she doesn't want to fuck as often as he does, because when he does, he wants her to call him, like, her bucking bronco and tell him how big he is and all this other shit. And Billy Crystal's very psychiatric response to this is, fucking do it, whatever. Smoke a joint, drink some wine, life's too short, fuck each other's brains out. And he's like way happy with this, and she actually doesn't seem opposed to it. Like, maybe I can just do that. Huh? Who'd have thunk?
Yeah, it's a weird sim because, yeah, she doesn't say she objects to the sex. Well, she's just like, what do you want me to call him? Bucking Bronco and how big and all sort of stuff. Like, which is, I can't imagine that conversation hasn't happened already. Or maybe that's why they're in therapy. Like, I want to keep telling you, I don't want to hear. I don't know. It's obviously a comedic scene just meant to be funny. You can't, it's nothing deeper to it.
Kind of, but like I see that a lot on Reddit in the advice subreddits. Like somebody will come in like, how do I tell my partner X, Y, and Z? And a lot of us will just respond, tell them what you told us. Just say those words, but to your partner. That's how you do that. What they're really asking for is, how do I say X, Y, and Z without getting an emotional reaction that I don't want them to get? And the answer to that unspoken question is, you can't guarantee that, otherwise you're being manipulative. You tell people the truth, and then how they react to it is their responsibility.
Anyway, so we...
So Robert De Niro thinks he's okay again after this cathartic experience right before the gunfight. But then he sees a fucking insurance commercial and loses it crying.
Has that ever happened to you? You see like a commercial, some random thing, and for some reason it really hits you unexpectedly?
Not commercials. I've had movies and TV shows hit me and me not see it coming. Songs even, but not commercials.
I have with a commercial. It's usually, who knows what's going on? I don't know what's going on in my life at the time, but like, it's usually something like a parent and a child situation, or some sort of like a romantic thing where they're showing in and they're selling a product. It's really not about the couple, but for whatever reason, the couple I see there, or the people on the screen, they're talking, just hits me. And I'm like, oh, I'm really, that's selling detergent. And I'm thinking about my mother or something. Who knows? It's just really weird.
So, but that means, we need to interrupt wherever the doctor's at in his wedding plans, which is the vows. They're at the vows section. And that's where Jelly comes and absconds with the doctor.
In full public again. Now, granted, that's not Robert De Niro, but still.
Yeah.
There's no subtlety here. And also, he couldn't just let them do the vows first and then talk.
Right. It was really... We talked about this during Stranger in Fiction, right? That you have to suspend disbelief to watch a movie. It strained my suspension of disbelief to have Jelly, who again will call himself a moron, other than this moment, not really a moron.
No.
Be like, no, it has to be right the fuck now. You can't finish saying your vows. But the twist here is that it's not to actually see Robert De Niro's character. He's going to go represent Robert De Niro's character at this big mob meeting.
Because De Niro's is just too emotional, and he's too busy crying, and he just can't get... And I guess Joe just can't get him out of the room.
Yeah, so they stick him in a suit that's slightly too big for him and super expensive. And the FBI are tailing everything, but a bunch of identical limos exit the Lincoln Tunnel. Is that the Lincoln Tunnel?
It's a tunnel.
That's the Lincoln Tunnel. I know what the Lincoln Tunnel looks like. That's the Lincoln Tunnel.
And then we see back with De Niro with his wife. Presumably that's his wife.
Yeah, and his
their son.
And his son's like, how long are you going to lay there? And he's like, yeah, I think I'm done. But he's not done in time to like interrupt the thing that's already in motion. So Billy Crystal and Jelly show up to this meeting and improv their way around. And so it's this big meeting.
See, the psychiatrist can do improv. Why can't you, George?
Because you neg my improv when I do it, Joe. That's why. Billy Crystal tries to sell it by slapping Jelly around, and Primo's about had it. So he pulls a gun, and right after he pulls a gun, who should walk in but Robert De Niro? And he's like, no, I'm fucking fine now. But here's the thing, I'm done. I'm out of the game. And they follow him outside, and he's like, you can't be out of the game. And they pull guns, and then all of De Niro's friends with guns show up. And everybody shoots at each other. And then the FBI show up and, like, arrest everybody but the doctor, who takes a bullet for Robert De Niro's character. Now, he says he tripped, but he didn't. He took a bullet for the character.
I thought Jelly pushed him into the bullet, actually.
Yes, all of the above. I mean, even if he did get pushed in front of it, he still took the bullet.
Yeah, I guess he did. Yes.
So he goes to visit De Niro at Sing Sing prison, and he maintains a therapeutic relationship with him. Over the phone and in person going forward. Oh, and to close out the film, you describe it, Joe.
To close out the film, Billy Crystal and Lisa Kudrow have a nice romantic moment at home, dancing to the music of Tony Bennett. Not on a recording, but the actual Tony Bennett is there, serenading them as they dance. Because Tony, I guess, has connections to the mob, and so he has to show up there. That's the implication. I don't know why Tony Bennett would agree to that, but anyway, and that's the end.
Yep, the end.
What's the song he's singing? I got the world on a string, right?
I think so.
I got the world on a string.
I mean, there's enough things that rhyme with string that I'm going to call it yes. All right.
And that is the end. So, my friend, does this still work?
Yeah. I can't... It was annoying to me because it was so repetitive. Like, it was just the same thing. It could have been like a short mini-series of like 20-minute episodes of wedding thing gets interrupted by mobster. But... like, everybody in this movie is a good actor, and they acted their hearts out. Other than me not believing for 1 second that Robert De Niro's character was crying. I was surprised at how off-putting I saw that crying to be. But other than that, no, I think it was a fairly solid comedy.
We must be getting soft on our old age here, because I also what is it, like our third, fourth film thinking it still works? My God, what has happened to us? But yes, I also think it's still works. I mean, it's a comedy. If it had been a drama, I probably would have hated it. But it's supposed to be funny, so you gotta allow for some of that. Other than the whole F slur, the film has aged pretty well. Overall, there isn't anything in there that stands out too much. You're like, wait a minute, that wouldn't happen today. Or wow, that's bad. They can't do that anymore. I mean, you can maybe argue with that with Lisa Kudrow's character. Like, why does she have to stop working? That doesn't make any sense. But her character is really not that developed, so yeah, it's hard to really go one way or the other on that. So yeah, I think overall it works. It's amusing enough. I don't want to see the sequel.
No, I don't either.
Where these characters go next, I don't give a damn. But
say that, where it's analyze that.
Yeah, I don't want to analyze that. This was enough. All right, so yeah, we both agree it still works.
Which I'm like right about there in Duolingo, where I'm trying to learn like este versus akea, and trying to keep them straight is this versus that is fucking with me. After we're done here, I want to tell you a little Spanish word I ran across that I didn't realize has two different meanings. Oh, boy. Post-show content.
Yeah, it has some very provocative meaning and some very not so provocative. Anyway.
I'm on day 103 of my streak now.
Yeah, you're way ahead of me. I'm on 60 days or 76 days. Okay, okay, George, so what's up next?
Next week, we mentioned it once, but we're talking about Stranger Than Fiction from 2006.
Yes, we've already seen it, but you haven't heard us talk about it.
Right.
Folks out there in
podcast land. So that should be interesting. I hope so. I finished editing it this morning.
It was interesting for us anyway. So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dickton. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaca. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
You think those whales pissed in that water?
No. I think they used the men's room next door to the burger king. Dummy.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaca. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
I've seen him in The Princess Bride, City Slickers, heard him in Monsters Incorporated, and
Wait, we both said
Cars.
City Slickers.
You're right.
So we both seen City Slickers then.
Yep. So we should probably redo that. Otherwise, our non-existent fan base will call us out on it. I've been dating a guy for more than a year and a half now, and he wants to marry me. How can I stop my mom from trying to contact me? My boyfriend often talks about events that happened in his office,